a scion of many worlds. You're going to deform the breastplate, Jasper notes as Terry's grip on him starts to make the metal creak. There is nothing but water and air below me. I can't even see the land. You'll be fine. I won't drop you, he tells her. Still a lot of nothing below me. You're going to have a very hard time with spaceships. He notes, and her grip tightens slightly. Will there be a deck beneath me? And walls and roof around you. Spaceships are ridden inside, not on, he says, and she seems to relax a little. That's fine then, she says, and goes quiet. She's clearly intending to say nothing on the rest of the way to the nearest island, which is still just a little bump on the horizon. So, what was the big motivation? He asks, and she lets out a confused sound. It takes a lot of effort and will to grow as powerful as you have in the kind of society you've grown up in. Was it for a specific reason, or was it just a side effect of self-improvement? What does it matter? I'm strong and ready to fight. What more do you need? She's utterly dismissive of things. Nothing but why? Why have you molded yourself in the way you have? He asks. That's my business, she says with a note of finality. Okay, fine. I was just making conversation, he says, and she seems to hunch into herself. That means it's personal. Great. Hopefully it's not something that bites him. Although if it was, then it should have come up by now. He's conquered her home country and beaten her multiple times in spars. Although she has been getting more creative, more vicious, and faster in every fight, she's definitely someone he's going to work to keep on his side. She's clearly uncomfortable in the sky, but had never shown it in a spar beyond struggling to keep attacking without being near to earth and stone. Not that she hasn't been finding ways to make it work anyways. Metal is starting to mold more and more to her touch. He vaguely wonders if she'll ever learn to control lava, and as the mental image of Terry ramming a blade of burning slag into his gut flashes behind his eyes, he begins the descent to the first of the islands. The archipelago is very vaguely circle-shaped. Cracked islands scattered as if escaping a blast as the third and smallest continent continues its incredibly slow detonation. In the past 500 years, the islands have reportedly moved further apart, not by much more than enough needed to notice, but several that were very close together now needed more than a simple jump to cross from one to another. If they weren't so close together, and clearly once part of the same landmass, that change would have been missed. But it was a detail that the Star Seekers gladly ate up and made a point of on all their maps about the archipelago. That it's very slowly retreating from the center. The center that was called the Inner Ocean by the locals. A cute name. He alights down on the beach far below at the outskirts of a village with a large collection of straw huts and a considerably more solid-looking main building. Off the shore is a simple enough-looking sailing ship, and it's got a longboat deployed to barter with the locals. Terry lets out a sigh of relief as her feet hit the sand. Jasper considers for a moment before deciding to make sure it's not going to bite him. Sorry. For what? She asks. I can't think of any reason you'd hate being high up except the fact I've been using it as a cheap way to win in our spars, he says, and her lips quirk into a smile. That's not it, but thank you, she says as the rest of the team catches up. Magrika and Banshee are next, followed by the six before Lady Aelure descends with Lady Clarity, both of them wrapped up in conversation. I take it from the lack of reaction that the ship there is not our target, Jasper asks, pointing to the nearby ship. It's got several masts, but he doesn't know his sailing ships all that well. Something to brush up on. No, not at all. You'd feel it. If you could feel what was done to me, then the mere presence of the broken soul will stand out like a screaming child, Banshee says before pausing. A screaming child of my kind where the scream can shatter stone. Noted, Jasper replies. Still, they will be of some use. I will speak to the sailors while you present yourself to the local chiefess, Lady Aelure says, taking off and fluttering over towards the longboat that still has a woman on lookout. That said, the rest of the group approach the village on foot. Dropping out of the sky into the middle of them may spook the woman, and that's not something that generally helps out with getting information. "Greetings," Jasper calls out, waving a claw at the curious villagers. "How'd she get so big?" A small Jorgwa child asks out loud before anyone else can say anything. Jasper just chuckles. "I ate everything my mother told me to." He lies twice. Neither Horace nor Emmanuel had been so well behaved. That the little girl lets out a moan of disappointment and her mother lets out a huffing laugh means that it was exactly what he was aiming for. An icebreaker, a Jorga, in the form of the mother walks up to him. The alligator woman looks more alligator than woman at the moment, and she rears up to tower as best as she can. Unfortunately, Jasper's gotten cartoonishly large at this point, and he's still taller, not counting the antenna, which add at least 2 feet to his stature. She plainly looks him up and down and huffs in amusement. "You must have been eating something to get this big and this odd in form." The oddity is something that has a very long story tied to it, and I have important business and little time to tell it. The size, though, to sustain it, I've been eating everything I possibly can, even things that no Earthani would rightly eat in order to sustain it. The greater the size, the more is needed. Not true. I saw bigger eat less, the tribeswoman says. Before reaching into a pouch around her waist, she pulls out a strip of dried meat. "But you eat this big bug?" "I can. Are you offering it to me?" he asks, and she nods. He holds out his claw and she places the meat within it. "Thank you." He takes a bite out of the meat, using axiom to link his needle teeth together like proper slicers instead. "How do you do that with tiny teeth?" "I use the power to make them help each other," he says as he tries to place what kind of meat this is. "This is no fish. What is it?" "Sea hund. The stupid things bite our nets to try and steal our fish, and if they don't let go in time, they become food too. Most don't like the taste," the Jorgwa says, and Jasper shrugs before tossing the rest of the jerky in his mouth. "Tastes okay to me." "It tastes more of the ocean than most things of the ocean," the Jorgwa states, looking him up and down. "It was nicely salted," he answers as he grins. She just tried to haze him and it completely backfired. The overly salty meat was tasty to him, which was a good sign that his more human anatomy was well and truly in place. Good. He'll still have a medical checkup to be sure, but he wants the good drink again. Hell, he'll even have Horace whip it up proper like the man promised. "You are strange," she says plainly. "Look at me. It would be stranger if I were not strange." He replies and she lets out a huffing laugh in response. "True, that is true. Why are you here?" "We are hunting a wicked ship. We wish to know if it has been seen by those of this village." Jasper replies and she tilts her head. "Wicked ship? Not that one?" she asks, pointing to the ship anchored not far away. "No, not that one." "Have you heard of the Broken Soul?" Jasper asks, and she loses her balance and falls forward. He catches her to keep her standing upright. That seems to be a yes. Elder Maz says that if we're told the Broken Soul is near to hide, bury selves under sand and deep below waters, away from ship and all who are upon it, she says, and Jasper nods. "Could you tell me where I can find Elder Maz?" She speaks with the captain of the mighty surge. The tribeswoman continues and points the way. Her clawed finger is directly aimed at the largest building, and Jasper nods. "Thank you for your time, ma'am," Jasper says politely as she takes a step back and falls back into a quadruped stance. "Just be careful. The Broken Soul is one of the things that scare hatchlings back to their mother's side." "Well then, I apologize, for I'm soon to kill something you use to keep your hatchlings out of trouble," Jasper says, and she gives him an odd look from somewhere around his kneecaps. You think you can just slay something like the Broken Soul? You Biglanders have no idea how dangerous that ship is." They have tampered with the forces of death itself, something I am familiar with and heartily disapprove of it being used in torture. I don't care how powerful they are. I'm not letting them live a second longer than I absolutely have to. Jasper promises, and she gives him an odd look. You are so sure. How do you kill that which does not die? You cut that which ties it to life. He answers, flicking his claws a bit. I have some very good cutting tools. I thought Urthani were peaceful, she asks in a stunned tone. All the war had to go somewhere, he says with a grin. So you're more Warthani than Urthani? Never mind, it was a bad joke. Again, thank you for your time, Jasper says, and she looks even more confused. You are strange, she says, and then starts walking off. Again, it would be stranger if I were not strange, he remarks, and there's a swish to her tail that seems to be saying something, but he's not familiar with Yorgwa body language, especially considering that they have so many different kinds of bodies. Although, that could be interesting. If he could do something similar, then the downsides to his current size could... Why are you staring? Magrika asks, and Jasper comes back to the here and now. I was thinking about the shape-shifting. If I could do that as well, then I could fit in places too small for my current size. He answers, and Magrika chuckles. So, no leaving big, long gouges up stairwells? Magrika teases. Or getting hit so easy with attacks? Terry asks. Or needing to eat so much? Jane adds. I don't know. I kind of like him big, Lady Aelur says in a slightly throaty tone. She had returned from her talk with the sailors without a sound and only caught the last little bit of the conversations. She had been worried about it being pointed out that Jasper was speaking to the local troublemaker, but the woman clearly wasn't laughing or amused, and Jasper didn't seem fazed by anything. So it was not anyone's problem. Oh, goodness, Lady Clarity moans into her hand. She had made the mistake of wondering what the sounds were. Once. Can you idiots take this seriously? Banshee demands. This is part of taking it seriously, Banshee. We need to be at our best for a proper fight, which means relaxed and not exhausted from paranoia and fear. The energy that being afraid would use is instead directed to killing the bitches. Oh. It's something that happens the more you fight. You stop worrying about the fighting and that makes you fight even better, Jasper says with a shrug. But you're right, we should hurry up. It takes maybe 30 seconds for his long strides to take him to the large cabin, and he opens the door. To his amusement, the top of the door frame is at his collarbone, and he fills the entire frame. Good afternoon. Might I speak with Elder Maul? What am I even looking at? Someone asks, and Jasper kneels down to look into the building. There are 4 figures inside, 3 Jorgwa and a Foza wearing a tricorn hat that has holes for her ears. The Jorgwa are in tribal wear and are looking somewhat scarred and faded compared to the rest of the village. What kind of Urthani are you? One of them asks. A big one. I do need to speak with Elder Maw, though. For what purpose, child? One of the Jorga asks. This one has an almost centaur-like form to her and has a hot bowl of something in her hand. I'm hunting the broken soul. From what I understand, Elder Maw would be the most knowledgeable about that dreadship. Is it because, like them, you seem to have trespassed against death as well? She asks, and Jasper pauses for a moment. Not exactly. I was hunting them before I knew of that ability of theirs, but the way they've used it offends me, so it is further cause to bring them harm. How did you sense my strangeness? Beyond your size? There is a presence to those touched by death. Yours is different, but it's unmistakable.